All right. We are talking about the last chapter. So, screen. Okay. So sexual reproduction. Okay. The reason for sexual reproduction is pretty simple. Okay. Males have sperm, females have eggs. They combine to form a new individual. The purpose of forming a new individual this way, instead of just making a clone of yourself, is that we have much more genetic variation. Okay, and more genetic variation provides more adaptability to a changing environment. If the environment is like hyper stable, it actually selects against sexual reproduction. If an environment is changing, then it's better to have individuals who are different from one another, so at least some of them can survive. Okay, so gametes form in the gonads. Okay, so males make sperm, females make eggs. These things are fused together to go back to the original chromosome number. Okay, the new individual progresses from zygote, so right after formation, to an embryo. Okay, from an embryo to a fetus. The difference between embryo and fetus is the embryo is growing new structures. The fetus is developing those structures. Okay, it's getting bigger. Okay, so each zygote gets 46 total chromosomes. Okay, 23 from mom, 23 from dad. So that we usually refer them as 23 pairs of homologous chromosomes. Okay, so chromosome 1 from your father and chromosome 1 from your mother are homologous. It means they have the same genes, but not the same alleles. Alleles are versions of genes. Okay. Okay, so each chromosome, okay, so don't read that. So each chromosome has one allele of each gene, okay? Since you have two chromosome ones, you have two alleles of each gene, okay? These alleles are actually silenced epigenetically sometimes. So your father's allele will turn off your mother's allele, and vice versa. There's this thing called genomic imprinting, where they fight against each other and silence each other, which is really kind of cool. Okay. All right. So I'm sure you know this one already. So here's the X and here's the Y. Okay. So the X is huge. The Y is really small. So X-linked genes and stuff are only on the X chromosome, not on the Y chromosome. Okay, and that leads to a whole bunch of different diseases, including hemophilia and color blindness and Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, being primarily in males. Okay. Okay. We talked about this earlier as well at the beginning of the semester. One of the two X chromosomes becomes inactive and turns into a bar body. Okay. You randomly turn off patches of one X chromosome early in development. So early in development, every cell makes a choice to turn either one off, and therefore you have if you're female, then you have patches where your maternal X and patches where your paternal X. Okay, males we just turn on all the X's. Okay, so when I was undergrad, or after I was an undergrad, I took a year off college and I worked in a research lab, and sex determination was one of the things we were actually looking at. Okay, so I was an undergrad, so I used to grunt work. Okay, so it wasn't like this was fascinating for me, but embryonic gonads can either become testes or ovaries. Okay, so when we're born, we have a pathway. That pathway is inherently female. Okay, so most of you guys who stayed on that pathway, males got a surge of testosterone very early in the embryonic stage, about week 8. Okay, 6 or 8, depending on how you count. Okay, this is coded by a gene on the short arm of the Y chromosome called the Sry gene. That's basically the only gene on the Y chromosome that really matters a significant amount. Okay, so Sry turns this into testes. Okay, so the default pathway is female, so no Sry, you get ovaries. Okay, and from the testes, okay, we get other changes. Okay, okay, so the testes develop, they descend in the scrotum. This usually occurs before birth or shortly after, okay, because cooler temperatures are needed for spermatogenesis. Okay. Okay. Ovaries. Okay. So we talked about this as well. So we can talk like basically people with these conditions are infertile because the body doesn't really know what to do, and they have lower amounts of the sex chromosomes or the sex hormones. Okay. All right. So beginning, we have 2 sets of ducts, Mullerian ducts and Wolffian ducts. Okay, the Wolffian ducts are male ducts. Okay, the Mullerian ducts are female ducts. The making of one causes the other one to regress, usually. Okay. Okay. And again, the Mullerian ducts are the default. So the Wolffian ducts require testosterone. Okay. Okay. The genitalia, okay, like I said, we start off the same, and so these structures are starting to develop. So what turns into the testes in males turns into ovaries in females. What turns into the penis in males turns into the clitoris in females. What turns into scrotum in males turns into the majora in females. Okay. Okay, this masculinization causes changes in brain development as well. Okay, so you're not just male because you have a testes. Okay, there are changes in brain development. Okay, so and the way to test this is pretty simple. Okay, so you take a female rat, newborn female rat. First of all, newborn rats really immature compared to newborn humans. You take a newborn rat, you inject it with testosterone, so you give it the testosterone surge. Its brain is now male. Okay, they will do male things even though they're female. Like they will fight with other males. They will try to copulate with other females. Okay, even though they're female and rat genitalia do so. Okay. And the same thing true is the default pathway is female. So if I take a male rat and remove testicles, early, there's no surge. No surge makes the brain female. Okay? They act female. They are more submissive to the male rats, and they actually do this physical thing that is the equivalent of bending over. So that female rats have to get into a position so males can like climb on top of them and stuff. And so they actually do that if they're if they're male but have their testes removed at early age. Okay. Okay. So hermaphroditism, this is really rare. Okay. So not every cell receives the full Y chromosome. So if you have the Y, then that part turns male. If you have the no Y, then you only have XO, and therefore that part turns female. Okay. Okay. Pseudo-hermaphroditism may be due to excessive secretion of adrenal androgens in female. Okay. Congenital adrenal hypoplasia. Try to hit at this a little bit earlier, but I didn't really want to discuss it because I'll save it for this. Okay. So they have okay. There you go. Okay, female pseudohermaphroditism is where you have ovaries, but because you produce excess androgens that turns you male looking. Okay, so you have ovaries, but you have male external genitalia. Male pseudohermaphroditism is you have testes, but you don't either the testes don't the testosterone receptors don't work. Okay, or you lack 5-alpha reductase, which converts testosterone into DHT, and that's required for vascularization. Okay. Okay, testes stop making testosterone by third trimester, and ovaries don't make embryonic sex hormone until, and this occurs until the gonads are similar to puberty. That's why, like, there's less differences between males and females until puberty. Okay, okay. FSH and LH are produced in the anterior pituitary, both females and males, with 3 effects. The stimulation of spermatogenesis or oogenesis, the stimulation of gonadal hormone secretion, okay, and the maintenance of the gonads, okay. Okay, the regulation of SSH and LH is controlled by G and RH from the hypothalamus. Okay, all right, which, okay, so the gonads also secrete inhibin, which actually prevents release of FSH, but not LH. Okay. The secretion of GNRH is pulsatile, so they come in pulses. So FSH and LH are also pulses. This is more apparent in female. The females have this, like, they cycle. They're more dramatic. The male response is always kind of smoother. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. FSH and LH is elevated at birth and stays high for 6 months postnatal life. Okay. So puberty begins with the release of LH. Okay, which luteinizing hormone causes release of testosterone or estrogen. Okay. Okay. These hormones, testosterone and estrogen, produce the secondary sex characteristics. Okay, so in girls, this is the growth spurt, breast development, first period or menarche. In boys, um, the boys, the growth spurt is later but longer. The body, muscle, penis growth, etc., etc. Okay. Okay. In both sexes, body hair stimulated by androgens. So, okay. So here you can see the females. Okay. Their surge is earlier. Okay. And their height gain is less than the males. And so the males is later but more. So what happens is you have the awkward, sixth grade picture where all the females tower over all the males, but by the end of high school that like reverses, and all the males are bigger than all the females. Okay. 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 Onset of puberty is determined by activity levels and the amount of body fat. So the way puberty works really is puberty is a huge suck of energy. And so you have to have that energy that's available so you can use. And so what happens is your body determines how much energy you have by how much fat you have and how much protein you're getting. So if you have those in adequate amounts, you begin puberty earlier. Okay? If you don't have that, you begin puberty later. Okay? Okay. So more active, slimmer girls became puberty later simply because they're skinnier and they have less fat, so less fat signaling. Okay? Okay. All right, the human sexual response. I'm not sure why that's part of this. This particular section, but the four phases: excitation, plateau, orgasm, resolution. Males have a refractory period that they're not able to ejaculate. So females can get multiple orgasms, so males can't. Okay. Okay. Excitation is characterized by increased muscle tone, vasoconstriction of the sexual organs. Okay, so blood flows to the sexual organs, but doesn't, or less of it flows away. So that's arousal, and in other animals, the organs turn red. Okay, which is what makes red sexually exciting and stuff like that. Okay. Okay, testes, okay, have two compartments. The seminiferous tubules where FSH works, so follicle stimulating hormone works on the seminiferous tubules, okay. So the way I remember really, okay, FSH, follicle stimulated hormone, stimulates the follicle in females, okay. In males, they do the same thing. They just stimulate things that make sperm instead of things that make eggs. So FSH influences spermatogenesis. LH causes testosterone secretion in males. It causes estrogen secretion in females. Okay. Okay. Okay, so that, okay. Okay, so estrogen or testosterone is converted to derivatives in brain cells. It's either converted by DHT or estradiol. Okay. Male and female brains are different due to the effects of estrogen and testosterone. Okay. Okay, testosterone secretion. We maintain testosterone secretion pretty evenly until 70s, and maybe even a little later than that. Okay. After that, the decrease in testosterone, physical activity, obesity, drugs. Okay, so if you look at like 80-year-old men and like 80-year-old women, they look more similar than 50-year-old men and 50-year-old women. Okay, and that's because of testosterone versus estrogen changes and stuff. Okay. Okay. Uh, Okay, so estradiol actually has some roles in sperm formation, etc. Okay. Okay. Spermatogenesis. Okay, so one sperm cell, okay, undergoes or spermatogonia changes into primary spermatocyte. Okay, so this is a mitosis division. Okay, these two are meiosis divisions where you lose DNA. Okay, and you end up with 4 sperm, which each of which have half the amount of DNA. This is okay. So one of the big things. This is easy, and so we don't screw up sperm formation very often. Egg formation is hard. Okay, and we'll explain why in a little bit. Okay. 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 So at the end, okay, you start growing a trap with digestive enzymes at the very top. You start concentrating mitochondria in the spirals in the mid piece. That's going to power the motor that swims. Okay. One of the cool things about sperm actually is, I think a couple months ago, even a couple weeks ago, was the first time we actually saw sperm swim in 3D, and we were completely wrong about how sperm swim. We thought they waved their sperm back and forth, kind of like fish or whales, but they don't. They actually go in circles. They spin around in circles. Okay, and that propels them forward. So the tail works more like a propeller than like a fish fin. Okay. Okay. Okay, spermatogenesis. So, okay, Sertoli cells produce something called blood testis barrier. Okay, because of meiosis, your sperm are different, okay, than other cells genetically. And because they're genetically different, they're also immunologically different. They appear different. And so your white blood cells will attack sperm, your own sperm. Okay, and that's why they have a barrier that prevents that from happening. On top of that, they also secrete something called fast ligand. Fast ligand binds to fast receptors, which stimulates apoptosis. That's actually how we kill cells. when we want cells to commit suicide, we secrete fast ligand. And since all cells have a fast receptor, they stimulate apoptosis in that cell. Okay. 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 So. Okay. Hormonal controls for metallogenesis. Okay. Testosterone and its derivatives is required to stimulate meiosis. So testosterone is required to stimulate formation of sperm. So males can ejaculate even though there's no sperm. Okay. So it's rare, but like you can make semen without sperm. Okay. Okay. So these guys, I'm sure you guys already went through this. Okay. The seminal fluid contains fructose, energy for the sperm to swim. It actually contains a lot more than that. It actually contains prostaglandins that cause the female uterus to contract to uptake the sperm. It actually it actually inhibits the female immune response and stuff like that. Okay. All right, prostatic cancer. Okay, benign prostatic hyperplasia is a common disorder affecting 40% of the men in their 50s and 80% of the men in their 80s. Okay, you'll see the prostate is really literally right around the urethra. Okay. All right, erection, emission, and ejaculation. Erection is a parasympathetic response, and it results from blood going into the erectile tissues. Okay, in particular the corpora cavernosa. Okay. All right. The signal is caused by nitric oxide. Okay. 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 So nitric oxide activates this, which causes erection. This is what Viagra actually does. Okay. What else can I say? The venous blood upflow blood is partially blocked the erection. Okay, so okay. 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 The control of the erection is controlled by the hypothalamus and the sacral region of the spinal cord. One part is here, one part is there on the bottom. So it is actually, there's two ways to control erection. Okay. So let me kind of explain this kind of weirdly. So one of my students a couple of years ago, her boyfriend had a car accident where they think he severed his spinal cord, and she was asking me some questions and about what would happen to the grade, and I was like, well, do you have any other questions? And she was like, yeah, like I was wondering, and she was kind of stammering through this, and she was like, her question was whether her boyfriend can get an erection ever again. And I'm like, seriously, your boyfriend had a car accident, and the first question you're asking is whether he can get it up. But okay, but the answer is yes, and because there's two parts that control erections, the hypothalamus and the sacral region of the spinal cord. If you sever the spinal cord, then the part coming from the hypothalamus no longer works, but the part coming from the sacral region of the spinal cord still does work. Okay, so the part that comes from the hypothalamus is the conscious thought. So you can get, sexual stimulation just by thinking about, porn and other stuff. Okay, that or sensory stimulation, the actual touching of the penis, etc., etc. That part comes from the sacral portion and not the hypothalamal portion. Okay, so anyway, I thought that to this day, I thought that was one of the weirdest questions I've ever gotten. Okay. Okay, so emission ejaculation is both under sympathetic nervous system control. Okay, contractile smooth muscles, etc. That is the shooting portion of the thing. Okay. Okay, so erectile dysfunction is the inability to produce or sustain a sufficient erection sufficient for intercourse. Okay, this can be mostly physiological. So obviously, the blood pressure and stuff needs to work properly. Okay, or psychological. Okay, and then here, Viagra and Cialis. Okay, or PD inhibitors, which prevent the breakdown of cyclic GMP, and that drives the nitric oxide response up, so erections longer. Okay. Sperm, when they fertilize egg, okay, do not work one-on-one. They work thousands and 10,000 to 1. By the time you get to the egg, you don't have millions. You have 10,000s, but you need them to work together, and so you need a decent sperm count. So under 200 million per mil is considered oligospermia and considered less fertile. Okay, underneath that you can actually be infertile. Okay, although I don't remember exactly what that number is to be considered infertile. Okay. Okay, so here's the volume of ejaculate, etc. Okay. Okay, vasectomy. You cut the vas deferens to prohibit sperm transport. Okay, so you will have testosterone. You'll still ejaculate, so you will still have semen. So you just don't have sperm in the semen. Okay. Okay. So condoms, suppressing. So this is male fertility drugs and stuff. Okay. All right. We'll end here for now. Pick up with the female reproductive system next.